Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Baird Art. Here to give you guys another demonstration, some art tips, figure drawing art tips. Yeah, great. So you can follow me on Instagram here at Baird Art, and be sure to subscribe to workshops and follow my blog at ronbairdart.org. Awesome. Well, let's get started. All right. Today, I kind of wanted to just talk about gesture and tools, really about how to get started with figure drawing. I'm using here just a drawing, just a clipboard you can get from your local art stores. You can also use just a masonite board and get some computer clips and attach it to the top. This is newsprint, smooth newsprint, and this is New Pastel. It's by Prismacolor. That's the brand, New Pastel, N-U-P-A-S-T-E-L. It's nice because it's soft, but you can get different colors, different shades, and they are a little harder, a little softer, so just depending on your preference. So to get started, I'm just going to do some drawings here, and we're going to talk a little bit about freehand drawing. So the key to freehand drawing is kind of remaining responsive throughout the drawing process. So what I mean by that is that when it comes to drawing, you don't really have rules as much as you do have tools. Tools such as perspective, or aesthetic, or quality of line, shape, or value. These are all terms which you'll learn as you go through your art career, and I'll explain more as I go through these videos. But they are tools that you can utilize in your drawing to solve visual problems, or rather to make a more pleasing visual interpretation. When drawing from life or reference, you aren't copying the model. And this is a big thing I think that I myself and a lot of students have struggled with, is this desire to want to copy exactly what they see. When it comes from drawing from life, you're presented with so much information that it's impossible really to copy everything that's before you. There's just too much. So figure drawing comes from interpreting what you see visually. For example, here I'm drawing a female figure here. It's working from some reference, and I'm not trying to copy exactly what I see, but to make an interpretation. For example, these are the two ends of the iliac crest, or the pelvic bone, or the hip bone. And as it goes down into the sacral triangle, right here. Well, I don't necessarily see those lines, but I know that that's the sacral triangle, so that's what I draw in. That's an interpretation. I'm using, at this point, line to interpret form. These are other lines I'm using. These are called wrapping lines. I know that this arm is kind of turning away from me, like a cylinder, like this. And as it turns away, I'm putting these kind of imaginary lines on here very softly, that describe its movement in space. Same here with this leg. So let's talk a little bit about how to hold your tool. So this is a stick medium, It's what I use a lot when drawing on a big pad. In my sketchbook I'll just use a pencil. Actually they're the Blackwing pencils. They're really nice. I highly recommend them. Maybe I'll put a link to them in the description. But you can pick up New Pastel at pretty much any local art supply store. Get at Michael's even. But the way I'm holding it is with an open hand. You see, I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm holding it with an open hand. I'm pinching it between my thumb and my first finger. I'm allowing at least my pinky finger to rest here on the board, and at times all my fingers. The benefit behind this is you get a larger range of motion. When I'm like this, I can only draw these little hairy lines, and they're not very nice, they're not very interesting. You really want to avoid that. You want to get flowing lines. The other thing that's nice about this is you can vary the quality of line. I can take a really nice soft line and then pull it to a real sharp. So for example, I can, maybe I'll make this line really soft, and this I'll make this soft, these shoulder muscles, the muscles of the deltoid, soft, and then as they describe the contour of the shoulder and arm, I'll pull them in real hard. And I'll make these guys soft. And the reason behind this is kind of where my visual interest is. A soft line creates what we call a slow read. Your eye slowly moves across here, slowly into this form as it flows into that form, as it flows into this form, as it flows into the leg. Those are real soft lines. A hard line creates a very fast visual read. It makes your eye really whip around that that form. And so I kind of want the viewer to look here. What you want to do is you want to vary the quality of line. You don't want all your lines to be soft. You don't want them all to be hard. I like to start out with real soft lines at the beginning because I don't feel committed to them. I can just rub them out, and if they're a little bit out of place, I can come back and do some adjustments. For example, maybe I want to make this muscle a little lower. I'm going to pull in a hard line there. You see, that hard line comes forward, the soft line recedes. And that's important because I've got two lines here. This one's softer, so you know it recedes in the background. You don't really notice it. But I'm going to pull in a hard line here because I just want the visual read on the back of this figure to just be very quick. You notice here that I'm not getting bogged down by details. At this point in a drawing, this is what's called a gesture drawing. Some of you may have heard that term before. I believe it actually comes from a German word, the Gestalt or Gestalt, meaning the whole. Basically, the idea of this type of drawing is to get the big relationships and the line of action, to get a really nice flow, really nice line of action, to get the major relationships working. And once those are working, to then build kind of anatomy and more anatomical structure on top. So that's what's most important at this stage. Not about rendering out all the details, not even about rendering the anatomy per se, but about getting the large relationships. Is the relationship in the right side, or is the rib cage in the right relationship to the pelvis? Do the arms line up the way they're supposed to? And that sort of a thing. So gesture, like I was saying, is all about the big relationships. A great exercise for this is to do very quick gestures. If you're struggling if you find yourself struggling copying the model, start doing 30-second poses. You know, and that's going to be hard. It's going to be frustrating at first because you're like, I can't get a good-looking drawing in 30 seconds. Well, the important thing isn't to get a good-looking drawing. What's important is to train your eye to ignore the superfluous, ignore the details, ignore the drapery, ignore the hair, the eyelashes, certain aspects of the anatomy. Ignore that. Ignore all the different contour lines and all that, you know, light and shadow. Just look for the basic idea. Look for the basic shapes. Let's do another one. Another thing about line is you want your lines to have purpose. When you're doing gesture drawings, there's a few different ways to go about it. I know that my teacher, Baird, really likes to kind of ghost in a figure. My pastel here isn't getting a super broad line. Let's see if I can find a better edge. That's a little better, I guess. Ah, well, whatever. But basically, just with real soft, using the side of my pastel, not the tip, and just trying to get the basic idea, that's better, of where these things belong. Basically, I try to imagine the figure I'm seeing as a silhouette and ghost it in roughly. It's a great way to start because it gives you really a rough idea of where to put your lines that are going to be on top of this thing. You can also, in this, you don't have to just do flat shapes. You can indicate, I would say just indicate at the beginning, anatomical landmarks, which we'll go over in another video a little bit later. But in indicating these landmarks, you can start to build form. You can use some of those lines I was talking about earlier to describe form as well. See how this looks like it's form now? It's not so flat. It has movement. Now you can use this method to start. It's a great method. And you don't have to. A lot of animators, especially, I know, are just very line-based. They just scribble on a line until they find the one they like and they'll darken it. Not a bad way to go either. I would say just try it out and do what works for you. I'm a big believer in the gesture. There's some academies out there that kind of dismiss the gesture a little bit. I feel like they think it's or they tend to not focus on it really, or dismiss its importance in the process of figure drawing. And I think they do themselves a disservice because some of the atelier approach, well, don't get me wrong, it's a great approach, that academic approach. In not all places, but in some places, can sometimes dismiss the importance of getting a good gesture, of exaggerating what you see, not copying. And of course there's exceptions to this. Watts Atelier is an exception to the rule. Watts Atelier, and of course it's not a rule, but they're a fantastic art school. I did their online thing for a while before attending BYU. And Jeff Watts is a fantastic artist. So anyway, yeah, I recommend them too. Go look them up. Go look up the Watts Atelier. Go take some online schools. or online classes from him. If he's still doing that, I'm not sure if he is. But you see, we start out really slow and basic, just getting basic lines, and then we start to clarify and strengthen as we move along. We want to start out basic. We don't want to get too specific too quickly. That's a big no-no. That's something a lot of artists do, and I myself even do it. You know, it's fun to render things out, but it doesn't lead to a great looking drawing, because rendering is not the same as drawing. What I mean by rendering is painstakingly copying value for value, shape for shape, what you see, whether that's from life or from a photograph. Well, it's an impressive technical skill. It kind of leads to flat, uninteresting looking drawings. And furthermore, it's in my opinion, not all that artistic, because you're not interpreting it in your own way. You know, you are just copying. And you know, why not just get a Xerox machine and copy the photograph? That's kind of how I feel about it. But again, that's just me, for whatever that's worth. You notice I'm using real basic shapes here. I'm not trying to emphasize anything. Heads don't really look like this. But you know, that's a shorthand. And with drawing, you want to shorthand as much as you can. You want to use what I call good economy of line. Meaning every line should have a purpose. Every line should tell a story, or add to the drawing in some way. For example, I see this sometimes, and it kind of drives me crazy. And no offense if you're at that stage where you're trying to get over this bad habit, but you're like, oh, I want to get all these little differences in the contour, and I see them everywhere, so I'm going to make this really hairy line, you know, and I guess I drew a foot, I don't know, but it's a hairy foot. It's Bigfoot. It's just a big, hairy, ugly foot. You know, if you want to draw a big, hairy, ugly foot, maybe that's your thing, then go ahead. But if it's not, if you want to do really nice illustrative or drawings for animation, you kind of want to avoid this. Although there are exceptions. I have seen animators that draw this way, and they're actually quite good and make their drawings look fairly interesting. But I would say, as a general rule, try and avoid this, unless you're able to put some interesting rhythms in there. You know, I don't know what this is. But anyway, I guess that does it for today. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to... Did I say subscribe? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. It's midnight here. So, anyway, don't forget to subscribe to ronbairdart.com. Remember, you can always follow my blog at ronbairdart.org, where I post anatomical tips, anatomy tips on anatomy drawing, and yeah, that sort of thing. So, also on Instagram at Ron Baird, or at Ron Baird Art. So, thanks for subscribing, and have a great day.